Okay, this is March the 18th, and what's your name?
Eric.
Eric, I knew that. And Sean.
I'm Sean.
Okay, guys.
How does that sound?
Or sounds good.
Okay.
Good.
This is perfect. This is a perfect way to start, dude.
Okay, perfect. So you were mentioning, start with that Kevin Young thing.
So Kevin Young mentioned that when he was down in California and you and Sean were down at Mouse's house editing Whiskey One, that the feeling in the room was like there's a chance people are going to go to jail or something. Just that you couldn't do that.
That you couldn't show people what we wanted to show people, or yeah. So, that I absolutely agree. So the setup was, so Jamie Mossberg had us at his house. He was editing his video with Kevin and those guys, and then Sonny Miller was also part of that whole thing. He was the editor. He was making surf videos at the time. So and Mouse invited us in to live at his house and edit Whiskey One. And so there was basically 3 movies being edited out of his garage or whatever. And Johnson and I and Bazawi were living at Mouse's house in San Diego, and Kevin Young and all these pro surfers like Brad Gerlach and stuff were there. And then this we started putting Whiskey One together, and it was like, I mean, a lot of the stuff in there is illegal. Like there's some stuff that was going on, and but there was definitely one night where we did an all-nighter. So our shift in the editing suite was basically from midnight to 6 a.m, and we put together a string, and the string was Bazawi smashing the bottles on his head, and we realized that was going to be the string to put the movie together, and we were just like, after we watched it, after laughing and stuff, we all went upstairs and we were just like I think at that point we were like sleeping in his living room. And there was just this conversation between me, Bazawi, and Johnson. I'll remember the rest of my life. And it was like, I don't know about this, man. We could go to jail for this. And then it was like this argument of like, well, whatever, man. Like, Johnson's like, whatever, you at least you don't have someone pissing on your head. And then the other guy'd be like, well, whatever, man, I'm paying a hooker in mine. And it was like this total whinge, like this totally whingy, like we'd stayed up too late, we're probably hungover, the booze had worn off, and we're just having, but like we were completely convinced that what we were doing was going to get us thrown in jail. We were going to be banished from the industry. All sponsors, our lives as we knew it would be over. Like, we did not think that it was going to become whatever it became. We were fully convinced, like, wow, we're really fucking ourselves here. And we were fine with it. And the next morning after whinging, or the next day when we woke up, we all just woke up and kind of started laughing at ourselves because we kind of got our balls back, and it was like, fuck it, let's do it, fuck it. And we were fully convinced that's what was going to happen.
That's amazing, dude.
So, yeah.
So I'm going to just cut in here. I'm Eric Charlson. This is the FNRad Snowboarding Podcast, and our guest this week is none other than the legendary Sean Kearns, and I'm very excited to have a chance to record with him in his studio, in his house, which is amazing. And as a caveat of that, I've got to do an unedited episode for you guys this week, which I'm pretty excited about. So Sean won't be edited, and that'll make my life easier somewhat, except for this part where I get all weird. But no, we'll start with the FNRad podcast is brought to you by Wired Snowboards and the Boardroom Snowboard Shop. Go to wiredsnowboards.com and get yourself a quality snowboard made by a quality snowboarder here in Canada, which is dope. Oh, God.
Are you whinging?
This is whinging. This is where okay.
That's just perfect, dude. This is it. Like,
this is real.
And guess what, man? I get weird sometimes, especially when it comes around sponsorships and expectations and bullshit. So just get weird then.
Yeah,
you know
man.
What I mean?
Yeah. Okay, so you can buy a custom snowboard. You can tell Rob what graphic to put on it, and you can tell him what shape to make it. You can just boss that guy around. That's what you should be doing.
So is it Rob Dow?
It's Rob Dow.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So what I heard is he bought Endeavor, or bought their presses, or something like that.
He left Endeavor, and as a part of his, leaving, he's like, I'm taking that press.
Yeah,
I think.
And so he started his own company, which is called
He's got
Wired.
he's got a couple presses. I've been to their shop down in Vancouver, and it feels a lot like the old Option Factory,
Yep.
like it's in the same zone. and it's a really nice shop, and they're doing really good work, and they're making amazing boards. I got a 62 powder board this year with a swallowtail, which I didn't know what to expect, and I put it on the snow, and I was like, this is the best board I've ever ridden.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So there you go.
You get 10% off at wiredsnowboards.com if you put in the offer code FNRad. Also, go to boardroomshop.com. They got everything you need for snowboarding. Huge shop out of Vancouver. Good guys there, too. FNRad 5 gets you 5% off sales stuff. FNRad 10 gets you 10% off anything else in the shop. So go buy stuff, people.
Awesome. Well, so basically, what those guys help you out a little bit with and so
Yeah. I talked to Rob actually, and I said, would you be interested in sponsoring the show? Actually, I asked him before that, what do you think about having sponsors for the show? And he said that'll make the show seem more legit.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
Yeah, cool.
Well, do you want to sponsor it? And then he was like, okay.
Yeah.
So it just worked out.
And you're not becoming a billionaire off making your podcast. You're working your ass off and doing it yourself, and you're getting a little bit of help from someone.
That's it. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Awesome. Good.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm stoked on those guys. Both, I used to work for Murray forever. Yeah. Boardroom. You've known Boardroom guys since the beginning, right?
Well, yeah, and that's what I was going to say. So 2 of your sponsors are completely and totally legit because Rob Dow has been around since forever, and same with Murray from the Boardroom. So yeah that's awesome.
Yeah, they're good guys.
It's congruent with what you're doing. It's not like you're the new board shop on the talent, whatever. You're not selling out.
And it's not selling out. It's not for. It's hopefully a mutually beneficial endeavor.
Yeah,
which
cool.
is dope.
Cool.
So let's start at the beginning. You were a kid in North Van, single mom, and she made a choice to bring you to the skateboard park. Have you ever asked her why she did that?
No, and actually that's a good question. I mean, maybe I have at some point, but yeah, my mom was single mother, 3 kids. My mom was from Ecuador, so single mother, 3 kids in a foreign country. I don't know how she did it, but for some reason, my mom would always kind of do this cool stuff. Like when in 1977, she bought a brand new Volkswagen van so she could take us around and show us camping and stuff like that. Like rather than buying like the typical car. She also took me, so I think it was 78 when the skate park was built, maybe. I think it was 78 or 73. I'm starting to think 78. Anyway, I don't know when or what, but exactly. But my mom took me down there, and this is all I remember is standing like right there at the edge of the bowl with my mom, and I saw Don. I didn't know who he was at the time, but I saw this guy just basically come down the snake run, and the bowl had no graffiti, like none. There was 0 graffiti. It was just this white thing. It looked like this big marshmallow, and then anyway, this guy came ripping down and came down the snake run, and then basically went straight in the bowl, shot out of the end of the bowl, and he did a front flip, like and I'm not talking like landing on your board front flip, just a front flip, And he had big long dreadlocks, and later on I'd figure out and would become a very close friend of mine. That was Don Hartley. But the cool part about it was I just like lost my shit. I was like, what just happened? Like, what is happening? And I understand, like there was no internet, like I didn't watch TV in those days, nothing. And these guys were wearing like colorful shoes, like old school Vans, and like this guy had dreadlocks, and his board was all these fluorescent colors. I think it was like a Sims Lonnie Toft or something, and I was just like, what is happening? And then my mom, I was like, I lost it when he did the front flip. I was like, what just happened? And then my mom's like, go and ask him to do it again. And I'm like, can I? And then like I ran up to Don Hartley, and no doubt he was super baked. And then he was just like, I'm just like, could you do that again? Could you do that again? And he was like, yeah, sure, man. Like he basically went up into the snake run and did another one for me, dude. And I was just like, you have got to be shitting me. Like I was like, so that was it. Like I was, whatever was happening there, something happened for me on a body level where I was like, I want to be part of this. I don't know what. And like 78, I didn't have a skateboard. I had nothing. So yeah.
We talked about the pad incident. I love that story because I think a lot of people have had something similar, whether they're going to a skate park somewhere and they run into, that, oh yeah, dude, like some guy being artificially nice to you, and you're like, what's happening right now? And then something horrible happens. So that's pretty burned in your memory, I'd imagine, that it was like Christmas or something, or birthday.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing about Sealand was you didn't just get to hang out there, and like there was this total hierarchy kind of like bully mentality, and I didn't know that. Like there was definitely that vibe. There was the cool kids and stuff. And anyway, there was a couple guys that were just like, and you know, no one was skateboarding in those days. You got to understand this. And this pad incident was, by this time I'd been actually going there quite a bit, and this was probably like in the early 80s now, like probably 81 or something. And that's actually when it was. And I think like Transworld had just come out with their first magazine. It was like a Kevin Staub cover or something like that. I can't remember. But anyway, and I we were broke. We were poor. And I for Christmas, what I wanted was I asked for a pair of Rectors, like, and like they were like red Rector pads with the yellow lettering and the white caps, and like basically brought them to the bowl. And there's this dude, Rob Lester, who was he was the sickest skater down there, and he's like, you know, one of the dudes who kind of like raised us. And I showed up with this new, and I remember the Rector pads even had the little bag they came in, and I showed up with like my thing, and and then I'm like, check them out, check these out, and Lester comes over, and he's like, look at them. He's like, oh yeah, these are sick. And like, I know, like he was probably pissed too, because they were brand new, like Rector pads, you know, and like nobody had money, but he had his set, whatever. He's like, yeah, these are sick. And then he basically just threw them in the river. Like he just like looked at me, told me how sick they were, and he like lofted them. If you know anything about Sealand, there's like about a 40-foot embankment down to this freezing cold river right next to it, and basically he just chucked one and chucked two, and I'm just like, and as he threw them, like it was like not only like. Oh, and then I think he grabbed onto me too. Like he grabbed onto me so I couldn't get them or something. And I was just like, and when you throw someone's pads into the river, and you also like realize how hard your mom worked to get you those pads, like there's a whole emotional disturbance that happens. And I remember just being like time warp, like what the and this guy's like holding on to me and laughing, and I'm just like losing my shit. And then finally he let go, and I ran down the side of the park, and then jumped into the river and grabbed my pads. I mean, they were going out to the ocean, and so that was it, man. That was welcome to Sealand. And guess what? Like, here's the thing: some people would consider that bullying, some people would consider that violence, some people. Guess what, dude? Like, I got my fucking pads, and I fucking grabbed them, and I went back to the skate park, and I put on my soaking wet, freezing cold pads, and I went skateboarding. And Rob Lester liked me a little bit more that day, and accepted me. You know, didn't let me know, but that was it. Like, I mean, that's just the way it was, and that's how I got raised. And my dad wasn't around, so that was my father figure at the time for a while, was Rob Lester. And if you were an asshole or a jerk or anything, if you stepped out of line, you were getting cuffed, or you get your pads thrown in the river. Like, you learned how to not be an asshole. I learned how, I mean, that's not true.
Sounds like the opposite, actually.
Yeah, I learned how not to be an asshole to people who could hurt me, but then, whatever. So anyway, yeah, there was a real bully hierarchical mentality at Sealand, and I actually, I thank God every day for that, because that's how I was raised.
Did you bring that mentality up to Seymour during those early Seymour days? Like, the next stop on our journey here is Seymour, and like by the time you get there, do you put together a crew, and now you're at the top of that crew, throwing people's boots into the river?
I mean, it's that mentality definitely followed me to this day, follows me in my life. Like, I actually have to back off of that mentality all the time. Like, at the local Starbucks, if I see someone I've never seen before, I'm like, fuck off, dude. Like, like you don't know you don't know how it's like to order coffee around here. I've been ordering coffee here since whatever. Like, really, that is ingrained in me for everything. And it's like, who do you think you are? And then it's like, oh yeah, you're not 8 years old at the skate park anymore. But there was always, and still is, this thing of like, if I have a sense of entitlement that, like, if I've been around or other people have been around, you kind of earn your stripes. And then when you earn your stripes or you pay your dues, then you've kind of shown everybody else, like, hey, I'm willing to stick in this thick or thin. I'm willing to take the gurnings or the beatings or the laughing ats and the embarrassment because this is more important to me. And I'm actually in this because of my heart rather than, who I want you to think I am. And so I know that sounds a little bit dysfunctional. At the same time, it was so powerful for me. So yeah, going up to Seymour, it was like, I remember giving Surface just like the worst times because I was like, who are you, dude? Like, you're just this photographer and like you can't even skateboard. And for me, that was my thing. That's how I gauged people. And then you had to like earn your stripes around me, which is a really weird thing. And I would never even tell anybody you had to earn your stripes. So they were like kind of always lost around me. And I was just like, whatever, dude, this is the way it is. And I just thought everybody else lived like that. And I do want to say, like, I definitely worked Surface and at the same time, I think I've told you at some point, and I have a lot of respect for that guy at the same time because he works his ass off. He came from plumbing. He paid his dues, and although I don't necessarily like the way he did things, at the end of the day, he kind of like put up with the bullshit and just kept going, which I have a ton of respect for. Yeah. So whether he cares or not, I don't care, but that's just where I'm at with that. So
little shout out to PD here too, because that would have been a big part of your childhood growing up, right? PD's Hot Shop and skates and all those guys.
Absolutely. So the first deck I got, the first wide deck I bought at PD's Hot Shop when it was on Oak Street. I think it was like 67th and Oak or something. Wow. Yeah, and I used to have they used to have a sign in there that said shoplifters will be severely beaten. And it was like, yeah, it was just like, and that was like it. I mean, those guys he had a full skateboard shop out there with big wide decks and 169s and real wheels. And I remember just going in there. The only time I'd ever seen that stuff was at the skate park. Like Rob Lester and Marvin Chan had that stuff. And then I roll into PD's Hot Shop and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, I don't even know. Like, holy shit. And then, yeah, that was...
I asked him, like, where did the hate come from? Because there was a lot of hate in skateboarding, and there's still probably to this day. Mm-hmm. You know, like that hate of longboarders, or the hate of a guy with small wheels, or the hate of the guy with the long hair, the short hair, or the board that's not like yours. Or there was always someone on the outside of skateboarding. And he just said exactly what you said. It's like you gurn the guys on the outside to see if they can make it on the inside.
Yeah, yeah.
And once they're in, though, they're in.
They're in. It's like it's weird. You paid your dues, and it's like a rite of passage. And I think it was so important for me, who grew up without a father, who grew up without that, whatever you want to call it. My mom was raising me the best she could, but there was no one there to cuff me when I needed to be cuffed. Like, some of the best lessons I've ever gotten in my life is a cold shot to the head, like oh really, you think you're cool? Here, bam, and the most solid punch in the head, or a full body vert slam from coping to flat, and it's like, oh, you think you're cool? Bam. Oh, you're human. You're not so cool. Bam. And so when you know someone else has gone through those and then they still come back for more, it's a different level of respect. Totally. You know? So
bringing that up to Seymour, who was the crew that you had up there? Like, and how old are you when you get to Mount Seymour?
You mean like filming or riding?
I'm just like riding. Like,
so here's the thing is, like, I never so Seymour, like, I was never one of those, the Seymour kids or any of that stuff. I was actually, it was Cypress that I actually started at.
Yep.
And I actually started working in the cafeteria at Cypress even before I had a snowboard. I actually was like, and then dudes were coming up there when it was still closed for snowboarding. They were the first ones to allow it, but when it was still closed, there was a guy named Corey Campbell that used to come up, and then there was like PD used to come up, and they'd hike and they'd build booters and stuff like that. And then I actually was working in the cafeteria, and I figured out you could everything was like evenly priced, like burgers and everything like that. So I figured out you could just like start lifting cash, and basically I was making like $200 a day working at the cafeteria at Cypress. So I was able to buy a board, and then
what did you buy with
whatever, man? They were poisoning people with Coca-Cola. I had to make it right.
Yeah.
So anyway,
social justice warrior over here.
Yeah. So social justice. Yeah, like a thief. Yeah. So basically, thief and liar. So basically. The first board I ever rode, like, everybody was getting into it, and I was still skating vert quite a bit out in Richmond, the Richmond Skate Ranch, and I was like, I just thought snowboarders were fags, and And then everybody kept doing it. And then I rented like a Sims, one of these Sims, like I think it was like a 1500 or something like that, but it was like kind of beveled, like it was almost concave. And I remember riding it one night, and snowboarding was just so easy for me. Like and it was like a soft day. And I just jumped off the chair and I was doing methods like instantly. I was a skateboarder. Like, so everywhere there was a launch ramp, and and I'd land on my head and whatever, didn't care. This is pussy shit, right? So, totally. So that was that. And my first night, I was like, dude, this is a joke. Like, you guys, this is a joke. This is easy. And I'm like, and it's super fun. So I need to get back up here. So then I bought, how's this? A Storm. And the guy's name was, so Neil DeFern was part of the doing it, but what was the guy's name? Jose something. He designed it anyway. So I bought this Storm board, and I upgraded my kit with my Cypress cafeteria money. So I had this sick kit, and then basically the board was. It was like this, whatever. It was like kind of this weird shape or whatever. But what I didn't realize was a lot of those boards came out of the press convex. So the opposite of concave. And it was like a little bit of an icier night. So I actually had this super cute blonde girlfriend from from Blue Ridge area. And I was like, yeah, babe, I'm snowing. She skied. And I'm telling her, yeah, I'm this sick. I can do methods. These snowboarders are fags and all this stuff. And she's just like, oh, cool. Like, my boyfriend's, and by this time Cypress was letting us. So we go up the chairlift, and then I go to get up the lift, dude, and this thing's convex, and I didn't know about detuning edges or anything, and basically ride down the thing, face slam, bloody nose, smash, like just like bam. And it's like, oh, you think you're cool, dude? Here you go. Nice. And then I'm like, oh, that was just a one-off. Well, here, babe, I'll do this. And then my girlfriend just watched me like embarrass myself after I just told her for like a week how sick I was at snowboarding and how easy it was. And I couldn't I couldn't go 10 feet without catching an edge, and then bam and bam and bam. I basically think I made it to the parking lot and was like, I'm over this and like whatever. And then eventually I figured out what it was.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's fucking awesome. Let's take a second here. We've talked about this before. Just the fact that our generation of snowboarders use terms like fag and gay to mean, well, I guess, a feminine guy, somebody that's not very manly, and it's kind of falling out of fashion. I shouldn't say it like that. It's
you're sounding like politically correct. Do you want me to clean this one up? Okay. So here's the deal, dude. Like, I don't really give a shit about like this whole thing about political correctness, like whatever words that people can't say. I just don't buy into that. And I'm not like, if someone wants to call me a white privileged male, I'm not going to get upset. I'll let them call me that. That's like fine. I'm not going to use, if I use words like fag or goof or pussy or retard or any of these things, these are just words that we use, and these are words I grew up on. Now, if someone has, actually wants to take issue with me and actually really question me about that, that's okay. I'm fine with that, but I'm not going to worry about what I say. And I won't play that game. It's a fucking word, and you have a choice on what you want to do with that word. So if something I say or you say offends someone, the first thing I think they should ask themselves is, why am I reacting to that? Do I really care that guy just said that? So,
right.
So have I said faggot yet?
Not yet.
Okay, I won't. I'll leave faggot out, even though for me that means cigarette. Yeah. And gay means happy.
Yeah.
And pussy means cat.
Perfect.
See, everybody has their own meanings for these words.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, and retard is that little thing you put in the motor when you don't want it to go as fast. You want to retard your motor.
Yeah.
There, everybody happy now? Good.
And if you believe that.
Yeah.
If you believe that.
All right, so I don't know why I thought you were a Seymour guy. I guess because of that jump that's named after you there. But things get named after the first person who gets like a memorable shot on a certain feature, right? Like, I guess that's how that happens.
I think so. So here's funny, dude. I don't even know where the Kearns Gap is. Is it the Kearns Gap or the Sean Gap, or what's it? Is it in a gully?
I call it the Kearns. It's in the gully.
Okay, then I know where it is.
Yeah.
And is it front side for regular footers, or is it back?
It is front side for regular footers.
It is. It's on the. Yeah. So if you're going downhill, it's on the right wall.
Yeah.
Okay, I know where it is.
Yeah.
So basically, that was a wall. And then we were just going down through there, and I just kept on doing a cut in there with my board every time, and then just do a little all in, eventually turned it into a thing. And then it turned into like I don't know. And at that
they
point,
build it up now. Like
Yeah.
they went in with the cat and they built like it's a giant wide takeoff. It's perfect.
And what's it called?
There's no name on the feature, but everyone calls it Kearns.
That's
Kearns
hilarious.
Camp.
Yeah. So basically, and at that point when I was coming to Seymour, like, I was living in Whistler, and then like sponsored by Santa Cruz and all that stuff, and we would just come to Seymour once in a while. That was before Devin and everybody. Like that was before all that started happening.
Pre-Seymour kids.
Yeah, pre-Seymour kids, and that's when I met Sand Sloan and all that stuff. And Swaro. So yeah, all those guys.
Brad, he was just in town.
Oh, sweet.
A bunch of people.
It's good to know he's still alive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
Cool.
Yeah, I was talking with 57 about him yesterday.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
hung out with Dave all day yesterday.
Cool.
So yeah, that's the next stop on our trip is Whistler. When do you make that choice to move there? Like, how do you go from being a skateboarder to a snowboarder, really?
Yeah.
Like from hating on it a little bit because that's what skaters...
Hating on it a lot.
Yeah, that's what good skaters did. To being like, this thing is a thing that I like doing this a lot.
Yeah. For me, it was I've always had this connection to nature that I didn't know was a connection to nature at the time, but I just like to be outside. And if you grew up at Sealand, you grew up skateboarding next to a river, and you grew up basically next to a forest that separates you from everybody else. So I was into that and didn't even know it. And so then when I was going up to snowboard, the chairlift ride for me was just as equally, if not more important than the rest of it. I was like, what is happening right now? Like I would just be, you're basically, and the different sounds like Cypress at night, like it's just weird. Like this, I don't know. I was just hooked by the nature basically of it. And I was like, this is what I want to do. Like I want to be in this as much as possible. And then on top of that, I started competing. Like there was this local competition thing, which was whatever. The competitions didn't do it for me, but what did was you would, like some of my friends got into it, and then we'd travel to these contests, which is really ultimately separate from just the snowboarding and the nature. Was this sounds lame, but you're having your crew, like community would be the normal person's way of saying it. My way of saying it is you have your crew, like, and all of a sudden I'm with these 5 other dudes, and I got a Volkswagen van, this other guy's got a Volkswagen van, this other guy's got a car, and we're driving out to we drive out to like Big White to go to a contest together. And now I'm part of something, and we're all like-minded, and we're all stoked. And that right there is one of the sickest feelings. It's like you're all doing your thing, and you're part of a crew, and basically the rest of the world starts disappearing at that point. So that was a huge hook for me, because that happened in skateboarding too. It was like, oh, we all do this thing, and now we want to travel to different spaces and do it, and something happens when that happened, for me especially. So I was just like, I think I still to this day try to recreate that moment all the time.
Rad.
So yeah.
So you move up to Whistler, and how were you going to pay the bills?
Yeah. So basically, this is part you probably don't know, is I was a bicycle courier, and I'd been couriering for 3.5 years, and so I was skating vert out in Richmond. Skating kind of died for me a bit, because I basically decided, like, I'm not going to try and go pro. I'm just not willing to take coping to flat bottom slams on a weekly basis, whereas guys like Sluggo and Peter Sullivan, like, they were willing to take the beatings, and I'm like, I just don't have the balls for that. I actually don't think I think I was smarter than that too. Like, I was just scared. I was scared to get beat, and so then I kind of like became a bicycle courier, had to make money, and then I started the bicycle courier company. And I was doing really well. I think I was like 18 or 19 and just printing cash, and had this own company called Vancore and all this kind of stuff. It was like, yeah, like my life's taken off here. I'm a little entrepreneur, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, except I want to go fucking snowboarding. I want to do this. So basically, it was really simple. It was like, I made my goal really simple. It was like, I want to be able to support myself doing what I love to do. And I don't want to be a bicycle courier anymore. And I want to snowboard. So support myself, meaning I didn't want to get rich at it. I didn't care. That could have been whatever. And for the first 3 or 4 years, I would frame houses for 6 months of the year. I'd come to Victoria or Vancouver, and I'd frame houses. And that, by definition, was supporting myself to do what I love to do. As long as the other 6 months, I was in face-deep powder, Nice. But before that happened, and when I first moved there, I'm like, I got to make this jump. And on the way out of being a bicycle courier, somehow I came across this half pound of Cubenzas, and I didn't even know what psilocybin was. I didn't know what drugs were. Like, I was so uneducated being brought up in a Christian family. I didn't know anything. I had no education about booze, drugs, nothing. And all of a sudden there's this half pound of mushrooms. But my entrepreneurial spirit took over because I'm like, wait a minute. So how much can you buy? So a gram of these can sell for $10 to $15. And in this half pound, there's a lot of grams. And I can actually, I'm like, oh shit, you know? So I bought this half pound of mushrooms and I ended up moving to Whistler. And I remember like I bought this little scale. Like it was one of those little scales with the spring inside, like a pen, like it's a pen and it has a string in it and you hang the bag from it. And it's so lame, dude. And I'm like, so I remember I meet this guy in the bar and it's just so funny. His name was Bishop, and it was like, and I'm like, okay, I got to put the word out, you know. And dude, he was a black dude, and I'm like, well, this is the guy. Like this, like I just a fucking idiot, right? I don't know. Yeah. And he was also he was known as like a partier and stuff. I mean, he knew everybody. So I'm like, hey man, you want to buy some mushrooms? You want to buy some mushrooms? And basically he's like, yeah, man, fucking whatever, dude. And I'm like, yeah, cool. Like, come to my house at like 2 tomorrow, you know, in this big official drug deal, you know, and he shows up at my place and then like, I'm so paranoid and I'm all Christian and everything. So I take a gram and a half of mushrooms, I put them in this baggie and I hide them in this bumper in this truck out in the driveway. And he comes in the house and I'm like, yeah, so, you know, $20 or whatever, $10 or whatever. It's $10, man, $10. And he's like, well, where's the mushrooms? I'm like, they're in the bumper of the car out there. I'm like, he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I'm so paranoid and thinking that like, well, if he grabs them out of the bumper, which in all rights, like blah, blah, blah. But it was just the lamest. She's like, dude, you're tripping me out. So anyway, he goes and I end up just grabbing the mushrooms and selling them to him and stuff. Yeah. And I end up falling flat on my face as a drug dealer and just like not. But what we start to discover is that basically on sunny powder days, you just boil up a bunch of this and you go snowboarding. And yeah, so that I don't think I sold too many of those mushrooms. I think we ended up doing them. I actually talked to Warburton about this, and we ended up doing copious amounts of mushrooms and snowboarding, but that's a whole nother story. So yeah. Well,
that's this story. That's it.
Oh, okay.
Like you think that helped you with the creativity in snowboarding at that time?
Oh,
because you guys were pushing the edge at that moment. You guys were at the edge of what progressive snowboarding was.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only progressive snowboarding, but there was also like everybody in Whistler, like that whole crew, Alex and Maury and all these dudes, like everybody, like we were so good at going fast too and nonstop, like top to bottoms, and then yeah, you just throw some mellow mushrooms in there, and everybody starts turning 360s into 540s and 540s into 720s, and it wasn't just the mushrooms. I mean, everybody was good as it was, but everybody, I believe that Whistler riders in those days, like you got to understand, dude, this is early 90s, like West Coast heavy powder in the early 90s, 4%, 2% of the skiers can even ski in the powder. They can't. Like you have to be so strong, and the skis were thin then. They didn't have these fat balls. So you had to be basically an intermediate or a good intermediate to really good expert skier to even dip into the POW. And then we were riding, and there was seriously 20 snowboarders, 20 in all of Whistler. Like you would not see dudes. So now when a hill can get tracked out in an hour and a half, the hill would not get tracked out in 2 weeks. And I'm not shitting you. I'm talking about it would dump, and then underneath Seventh Heaven chair where they wouldn't groom, and it would be pure powder for weeks after, like you just right under the chair because the skiers couldn't go near it and you'd get stuck. So it was like snowboarding in the early 90s was like heli skiing. It really was. It really was. Like the chairlift was a heli, and it would just dump and dump. Like not every day, of course, but there was, I cannot tell you how many times. And then on top of that, stack that we were doing heroic dose of psilocybin mushrooms. Like I had no idea, and we were just like loading up teapots and drinking that stuff. And it wasn't every day, but it was a lot of sunny powder days, and shit was going on. Like your reality was changing. And what I said to Alex the other day when we were talking about this is the one thing that I can tell you is if there was ever this external voice saying that, you need to go to school, you need to go to university, which was always there.
Yeah.
With the mushrooms, it disappeared. It's like, no, you need to be doing this. And thank God I did, because look at what happened. Like, I ended up making a full career for myself.
Right.
And buying, succeeding in how society would want you to succeed.
So the first of that career is going to be a sponsorship on Santa Cruz. Was the Santa Cruz the first sponsorship, or was there something before that? It was
so for skateboarding, I was sponsored by Quicksilver. And then they had Vancouver's first street skate competition in Granville Island Water Park in 1986.
Whoa.
And it was the first one where they actually had like a sponsor category, and I won that. Like, I won that
Nice.
contest. Was so sick. Like, I was like, I was grade 12, and like, I was this weird skateboard kid, but then you win this contest. I think I was on the cover of the paper, like the province and stuff. And so then that landed me as Quicksilver sponsorship. And then with that Quicksilver sponsorship, I ended up moving into snowboarding. And then with snowboarding, actually, I was on a company called Magnum. Oh, yeah. My goal in snowboarding was to be able to support myself doing what I love to do, and someday get me to be good enough that someone would give me a free board. From the time I made that decision till me getting a free board was 1 month later. This company, this startup called Magnum, said, we want to grab you and Alex Warburton, and you guys are going to do this company, and you're going to have full, complete design. And it was these guys from White Rock. They all good intended. They were just young guys. Yeah. And we started riding for this company called Magnum. And so I had like a free board, and that was dude, someone gives you something for free and it like looks like a snowboard does. Yeah. That's life-changing. And it was all white, and it was a prototype, and it was like white base, white top. And I was just like, I've made it. Like, anything past this is it doesn't even matter. I've done it. I did what I set out for. Anything else is a bonus. Rad. So, yeah. And then after that, at some point, Rankwit came up to Whistler, and we used to party a lot and stuff like that. And then somehow I ended up getting on Santa Cruz, and I don't exactly know the exact details of that. Except that, like I was just telling you in the car, when I got the box from them, I shit my pants.
First box, right?
Yeah.
There was a disconnect between Santa Cruz snowboarding and Santa Cruz skateboarding. That was because it was licensed to somebody over in Switzerland or something, right?
Yeah, like the manufacturer, so NHS. Yeah. And I think it was, what's his name? Oh man, I can't remember his name right now. But anyway,
you know what? Birdie said it on his episode.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So I can't remember his name right now. But anyway, so he basically is like, I got this sick brand, and then this company over there is like, we have the factory. Yeah. And so they did a licensing deal. Yeah. And then what happened was Joel Gomez got hired to run the Santa Cruz team, and then he fluked into Rankwit and Roach, and then they did that sick ad, and then all of a sudden they had the sickest team and the sickest branding and the sickest board. Like, it accidentally fit together to be like, everybody wanted a piece of that. Like, it was the dopest shit. Yeah. Including me. And then I got on, like, I was the third guy on. So it was like, I was on Santa Cruz with Roach and Rankwit.
During the Tao days, when those boards were like, everybody wanted one. Yeah. Everybody wanted one.
And Camille and Bertrand, they came out. Is his name Bertrand? Denevart? No.
I can't say it properly. You said it.
Yeah, Bertrand and Camille, they came out in the summer, and they had those boards, and I think that was before I was on, or I think I got on after that. And that Camille kid was sick. Like, he had super sick skate. So I remember him doing these indies in the half pipe, just doing sick indies, and just like, that's when everybody else is doing tip grab shit and stuff like that. And then seeing this, like, shorter, stockier kid ride it like a skateboard was just a trip. Yeah. It was so good.
Yeah, they crushed it. Yeah. Actually, they crushed for a full season. Like, the Mac Dog films everywhere had like footage of those guys in the pipe because they were so good.
Yeah, that Bertrand's super good guy, like super good guy. But I could give a shit. Like, I care about style. Yeah. And he had, like, he was a competitor, and he could do stuff, like he could do airs and all this kind of stuff. But I just didn't have any time for it because he looked like a gingerbread man in a straitjacket when he'd spin and stuff, and I wasn't buying it. Like, nothing against the guy, but it just like wasn't doing it for me. Like, I just like, if your style sucked, I just wrote you off like instantly. And that's kind of.
What did you think of a guy like Damian Sanders? Like, because when you look at like you would have seen him in his prime.
I was there.
As an actual.
I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was the feeling? What was the vibe? Was it like, here comes Damien, oh my God, everybody, let's stand to the side and watch this guy go? Or was it like, oh my God, here comes Damien?
No, dude, like the thing about Damien is he was so cool, dude. Like he was just cool. And if you actually watch some of the footage, like Homeboy he actually somehow in those hard boots pulled off some kind of style. So there was always this like respect that I had for, not to mention he would go 10 times bigger than I would go any day, any given day ever. He would just launch. And then, I mean, you got to kind of, at that point it's like, I can pull the style card only so long until basically, wait, you just went that big. Okay, I'm going to shut up now. I'm just a pile over here. So, and he was super cool, and he was, and like I said, he somehow pulled styles out of those hard boots. And,
I agree.
And he was gnarly, dude. Like he was gnarly. But every once in a while, you'd see this like sick style in that weird ass kit, and then he was dating Brandy and stuff, like Penthouse. Unbelievable. Like I got to sit next to her on the fucking chairlift. You know what I mean? Like Damien's my homie. Like I'll accept him all day long.
It was great when he switched over to Vampire Damien, and he had the dagger, and he'd ride in a leather jacket and stuff. Finally you got your style is matching what you should have been the whole time.
Totally, yeah. He went Vampire, and I think he actually went soft boots at that point.
And that ruined his legs.
Yeah,
I think he never was stoked on soft boots. I think
I don't think
he wished he could have kept going in hard boots, but it just was too difficult to do. He couldn't pull it off anymore. People were just like, probably yourself included, just too hard on him. Like you can't be in ski boots anymore, man.
No, dude. And he had like. And even when he was doing the soft bindings, he had like those GNU tongues in there. Do you remember that shit? Those pink things.
I do.
So it was like basically he was hard booting in soft boots, trying to make the transition. So funny.
Yeah. He's one of the only guys that went to that level that just he doesn't do it anymore because he blew his shit up pretty bad.
Oh yeah, no, he's
finished.
He was nuts, dude. Like he was absolutely nuts. He would go way too big. Yeah. He was psycho,
and it took its toll on his body eventually.
Yeah, he'd even land sometimes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there are a lot of shots in the movies that he doesn't land.
No, for sure. And I don't want to take a dig at him, dude. He did, like, he was just gnarly. He landed a lot, actually, like those Donner cliffs and all that stuff.
He got me into snowboarding. Like the transition from skateboarding to snowboarding happened when Snowboarders and XL came out, and there was like, holy shit, that's really insanely legitimately big.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible.
Yep.
So that's about the same time you're living in Whistler, and that's about 4 or 5 years before the whiskey thing happened. So once whiskey happens, you guys become international celebrities. And you also become kind of inseparable. There's a time in your career where it's Johnson and Kearns, Kearns and Johnson,
the Shawns or whatever.
The Shawns,
yeah. So what do you want to hear?
How does that organically happen? Like you guys move in together or something?
So basically I'm riding for Santa Cruz, and like, dude, we were like, partying basically took over. Like partying took over for me. Like I didn't know how to manage that, so I basically was just partying, and I was still trying to live the snowboard dream. And luckily, Brett from Santa Cruz kept me on. But like I was definitely slowly starting to get washed, and I was drinking more than I was snowboarding and whatever. And then Sean was like, Sean was just. I've always like had a thing for Sean. The first time I ever met him, we just like, oh, that guy. I want to hang out with that guy. And so we always did. And then he was just full of piss and vinegar. So he wanted to make a movie because I think actually there was some times when Mac Dog or whoever came up. There was actually, no, it was with me too in Fall Line. We had a couple filming sessions where this is going to sound old and washed up, but since I am old and washed up, I get to say it, is there was definitely some shit where like we were waiting to be put in the movie because we knew we were doing some sick shit and they weren't putting it in the movie. And then thank God to all Canadians who decided to make their own snowboard videos, Sean Johnson had the oomph to be like, fuck this, and we're going to make our own movie. By that time, Sean knew that I had this entrepreneurial streak in me through the courier company, and I just know business. I find my way around business really easily. And so he's like, "Oh, Sean can help. Would you be interested in helping?" And then at that time, Jamie Mossberg was staying at my place in Whistler, filming everybody. He was trying to get into snowboarding. And so that all happened, and then Mouse is like, "Well, yeah, I'll help you make a movie." And so, because Mouse was our homie, like, we'd party with him and everything, and then he's like, "Yeah, just get your stuff together." And so Sean actually got Gush Clothing to buy him a camera, and he just started filming. And the intention really was originally to make a snowboard movie, not to make a Booze Binderhoff psychopathic whatever. And so we were just starting to film everything, and then I think Sean had actually been filming for probably like 6 months before I did, and I didn't even think about filming or anything. The first time I ever filmed was the skateboarding of Sid and Judah in Victoria.
Rad.
That was the first time I ever picked up a camera or contributed to the movie. Was I came to Victoria, I was framing houses, and I went and filmed those guys one day.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we were broke, dude. We had no money. Like, there was no nothing, and we were just really good at drinking and going fast. And Sean actually was a legitimate snowboarder still. He was still on the circuit trying to compete, like all this kind of stuff. So that's kind of where. And then Jamie said, "Yeah, come down to California and come and edit the movie at my place. Come move into my garage and bring your deeply embedded alcoholism and your psychopathic friends and come move into our garage." And we did. And it was like we were full blown certifiable at that point. Like we could have been admitted into like the psych ward for sure. Like we were just, and yeah. So anyway, that just started that. And it was like at that point we had probably about we had, I don't know, just whatever footage we were going to do to scrape this thing together, because Santa Cruz ended up giving us some money, so we had a bit of money. And
did it take 2 years to make the first one, or was that all 1 year?
I think that Sean started filming the year before,
Yeah.
so he had some footage.
Yeah.
And then by the time I got involved, we actually started getting more and more footage. And then Mouse was part of it too at that point. Like, he was almost our partner at that point, because he was contributing footage, because he knew we didn't have enough. We all knew we didn't have enough snowboarding footage for a movie.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, this other footage we started to see the value in the other footage.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
That's
like
unbelievable.
the night that, so the Jeff Bazawi story goes that basically he came down to California, and the deal was we were going to pay for his trip. And I don't know if I remember this exactly, but it's something along the lines: we'll pay for your trip to come down, but you have to break a case over your head, meaning you have to break 12 bottles in a row. So then one night,
and he agreed to it?
Oh yeah. And so then basically he's like, we're in the studio one night, and there was this grocery store, the Vaughn's parking lot nearby. So it's like, okay, that's a great place. So then it's like, who's going to go out? And then it was like, okay, Sean and Jeff are going to go get the 12 bottles finally. So, you've been put your money where your mouth is. And I was like, fuck it, I'll get the 12 bottles.
Yeah.
So they leave, and then they're gone for about an hour and a half. And then they come back, and they're super depressed. And they're like, yeah, dude, we only got one. And we had no idea that actually the best footage is when you miss. So we're like, so I don't even know if it was that night. That might have been the night we put the first string together. Because Mouse, I think Mouse was the first one to see the string. Like, holy shit, dude, you've got like 8 or 10 different attempts of him trying to break a bottle. We'll split this up through the movie, and this will be the go back to, this is the thread that ties it all together.
So killer.
But the fucking sickest part and the biggest life lesson for fucking anybody listening to this right now is, we thought our biggest failure was our biggest success. Like, the gold mine was the misses.
Yeah. And
that's what everybody remembers that shit for, is like, dude, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No.
And they came back fully convinced that they'd fucked up. Like, he was embarrassed. He was shamed. Like, am I going to have to pay for my trip to Canada? And then it's like, oh yeah. So anyway.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. And so then you guys are editing this. You're not sure what's going to happen. And I think at one point you've told me, like, when you put the movie out, the two of you just go, okay, well, that was that. It was nice being a pro snowboarder, but now that we've put all this drinking footage out into the world, our careers are going to be fucked. Our sponsors are going to drop us. And so what? Who cares? All right, put it out.
Yeah, well, the actual plan was, when we went to put it out, and it's like, it's going out. There was a whole bunch of shit. Like, dude, we didn't license one song in that movie. Like we did our music licensing by going to the CD store. You know what I mean? Like that's how we picked whatever song we wanted. Yeah. And we had no money. We had nothing. And so it's like blood from a stone, dude. Good luck. So our plan actually was that if we ever got a cease and desist or a letter from a music company, that we would wipe our asses with the letter and mail it back to them. And if the snowboard industry, everybody was like trying to banish us, we were going to film us riding off into the sunset on horses, flipping the camera off to fucking some Leonard Skinner song. Just basically make a video to tell everybody to fuck off. Yeah, and that was our plan. And we really like didn't care. Like when we came back to Canada, a lot of people don't understand this, dude. Like we came back to Canada, I think we were 40 grand in the hole between the two of us. We had no jobs. And God. I was 26 and I moved back in with my mom, and Sean went and moved in with his parents in Kelowna.
Holy shit.
There's the whiskey stars, dude. Like that's what we went and did. Like we're basically psychopathic, binge drinking psychos who need to go home and live with their moms. Like it was just epic. It was just like, oh yeah, you think these guys really got it made? Hey, and they're making money hand over fist. No, it didn't happen like that.
Well, I heard about the whiskey movie when I was in Honolulu, of all places. Mm-hmm. Some Hawaiian surfer, Mike Botello, shout out to Mike, said, "You haven't seen the whiskey movie and you're Canadian? What the fuck is wrong with you?" Mm-hmm. And then we watched it in Hawaii, and I was like, I don't think that snowboarding's not that good, is what I said to her. I think I could be in this movie because I'm just looking at it just as the snowboarding part, right? But I couldn't hang with you guys. I would see you guys at the Ivanhoe for filming for Whiskey 2 when the backflip for is that Hernan or something?
No, it's Rich Christian.
Oh, Rich, yeah. And he like breaks his leg, doesn't he?
He powders both his ankles.
Oh God!
Like that's what the doctor said.
I watched you guys filming, and I was like, I could not hang out with these people. I would get beat up really quickly.
That was kind of the point.
Yeah,
we wanted to get beat up. Like we were. Yeah, I good choice.
Yeah,
hanging out with us. It was brutal.
If I could have chose to hang out with you, I would have. But I think I was like, hey, you guys, I snowboard, and you guys were like, you want to get fucking punched in the face, and I was like, not at all.
Yeah,
you know. But yeah, so the response was the opposite of what you guys were expecting. The movie made some money. You guys got out of the hole, hopefully.
We did get out of the hole. We definitely didn't make money. Like we had to make another one.
Yeah.
That was just the way it went. Like now we're like in.
Yeah.
Get the ball rolling. We want to make some kind of money. The only time we ever actually really made some money, like cash in hand off that movie was we sold... I owned a distribution company at the time. I'd started with Mark Morissette at the same time called Nubile Distribution.
I remember it.
Yeah. And so how we made money was me and Sean took the rights for Canada for whiskey, worked out some deal with Mouse, and then I sold the tapes across Canada. It was so funny, dude. I was phoning shops and threatening them like, you need to take this fucking movie, dude. And it was just super, and all we had to do was send them one or whatever, and people were like, dude. And then we couldn't, so we... And in those days, a tape was $1.50 to duplicate, and then they were selling to stores for like $19. So there's like that times 3,000. Sean and I got our first checks, and I think he went and bought a Ford truck, and I bought like a Volkswagen Corrado Chachi mobile with a Thule roof box on it or some shit. Which was like we basically spent everything we had. I think we made I think our first big checks were like $7 or $8 grand.
Yeah,
and we just basically went and bought vehicles. Like just like kept drinking.
And was there a feeling like, we'll make more. We'll make more. We can make a whiskey movie every
year.
It
was never about it. It was like it honestly was like I can say that for me and Sean, like the thought of we could make a living off this was there, but it was not. We were not motivated by money. It was never the first motivation. It was more our egos and our insecurity that we had to keep going and make a better one than the next, and it basically turned into be our own private hell. It turned to be hell. Like it was a trap. Like, oh, you have to, like some people say to me, like, aren't you bummed about Jackass? You guys started that. I'm like, hell no, dude, that is prison to be in that place. Like, oh, by the way, we have to go out and harm ourselves to get footage. And that thing you're talking about, like at the Ivanhoe and stuff, for me, the weirdest thing is like, for Sean and I, both of us, we were always kind of searching for the gnarlier guy.
Right.
And I think at one point we kind of realized, like, dude, there's no one kind of out there. Like, we'd keep on hearing about these gnarly dudes and these gnarly things and these harsh guys. And then it got really scary at one point. I'm like, dude, I think the stuff we're doing is like pretty up there. Like, as far as like, but neither one of us thought we were gnarly and neither one of us thought we were harsh. We were just like a couple of fucking idiots who like to laugh at ourselves and do stupid shit.
And the outtakes are the thing too, right? Like that fireman coming in and then his eye explodes on tape.
Oh, yeah.
That's like... And that wouldn't have made it in any snowboard movie ever for any reason, but it's so fit in that movie. It made the movie.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, that's just like, I mean, at those points, that's when it started going. So Whiskey 1 was, in my opinion, the most honest movie that I've ever seen. Like, it was honest. Like, that's what was going on.
Yeah.
There was not an ounce of us trying to do anything except we refuse to not show anybody what's going on. And we're not going to show the blue sky, whatever, snowboard video. And like, we're going to show the real shit. We're going to show us. And that means we're probably going to. So that movie, the spirit of that movie was true and clean. And that was a vulnerable expression of where we were at. And then after that, it slowly started to decline. Like Whiskey 2 was kind of in there still. Where it's by the time Sean and I split, it was just purely a money thing, and both of us felt like we were in prison and we wanted to get out. And we had to get out. So it wasn't it didn't end up in a healthy place. Go figure.
But you guys are still friends to this day.
Absolutely.
He doesn't live too far from here.
Absolutely.
I guess.
No, he lives in Souk, and he lived next to me in Jordan River. We don't hang out every day and have warm showers together, but we definitely. Sean will be a friend of mine for life, and we've been through hell and back so many times. You don't get to you can only there's certain people in your life that you go through things with, or that I've gone through things with, that I might not see him. Like, I don't even think I've seen him for a couple of years, a year plus right now, and I believe that the next time I see him, it'll be as if we've hung out every day since.
Right.
That's how it is for me. So yeah.
So then, as you guys move off in your own directions, you like kind of agree to take a break from each other or something, or just a break from the project? Is that what happened there? But you both kind of end up becoming filmers for, like, the main. Is that a fly?
Yeah, it's a fly in here, dude. How did that happen? Sweet, cool. We'll let him. Well, we're not going to edit, so we'll let him hang.
He's
Unless you
cool.
wanna.
No, we're good.
Okay, cool.
Get him on the shotgun mic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Were you working together during those first projects after the whiskey?
Should we get rid of that fly?
Yeah, let's do it.
You want it? Devesh, you want to open the door? Do you want to press pause, or do you want to keep?
Going.
Okay, let's keep going. Fuck it.
Fuck it.
Look at me all trying to be like, don't edit it.
Yeah.
There's a fly in there. Big tough Sean Kearns. There's a fly. There's a fly in here. Stop it. Also, there's another guy in the room named Devesh who's helping us out record this. So hi, Devesh. So, anyway, so what happened was at the end, like, it just the whole situation for me was really toxic, and for Sean, like, we were living together, we were doing business together, we knew of our pressures, everything. Like, it just sucked, dude. And then we were like, a lot of people don't know about Sean and I is that you can't just make those movies wasted. Like, you actually have to have responsibility. Right. So Sean and I would actually have responsibility. So we would drink with everybody else, get wasted with everybody else, but then we'd get up at 6 a.m. and start doing what we had to do. And that takes a different kind of person. You gotta have a strong kind of self-hate about yourself to be able to pull that off. Like, I'm a piece of shit, and so I better get up and do stuff to not be a piece of shit. But then I'm going to drink myself into obliterate myself by 3 p.m., be a piece of shit, then wake up and start the whole process over for only about a decade. So, and then Sean and I, it came to a head where. It just like, it just was unhealthy. We were going in, we were making movies. We made Whiskey 4, which is the word. I always make a joke that Sean made that and I had nothing to do with it. But it was just basically, we were desperately trying to get out of this situation we're in. And then we ended up splitting and going our separate ways. And at that point, I think that was like during a summer, we just basically, we moved out from each other. We just went, okay, we're done with this shit. And then I basically started working for MacDog, MacDog through, I think it was, I can't remember who initiated it, but I had a sled and I had a 16mm camera. And then basically they were filming for technical difficulties and I started going out with Devin and those guys. And then I was like, like my shit skyrocketed because I was like, I'm going to make a go of this. Like, I'm going to go for this. I'm going to not be a wasted booze loser. And I know how to film now. Like, thanks to Sean and Mouse and them, like, just by definition of being the company owner, it was cheaper for me to learn how to film. And so I never wanted to film. I actually had to film because we couldn't afford a filmer. Right. So I was like begrudgingly shooting. Like one of our biggest days as filmmakers was the 1080 gap in Whistler. And our filmer fell through, and I was the filmer. And it was like the first day that I was going to film on my own, and it was like Devin and Kale and like all the best dudes. And I'm like winding this Bolex and filming, and it was just horrible. Like waiting to get that footage back was like serious stress because we did not know whether I fucked it up or not because I didn't know what I was doing really, and it actually ended up turning being really good. Yeah. So
and then that from there, now you're in charge of. Actually, at some point you become in charge of MacDog at some.
So basically, I worked for the first year for Mike as technical difficulties, and he paid me day rates. And then the next year, Raul Reese and then their movie came out, Technical Difficulties. And then in that fall, Raul Reese, the owner of Forum, wanted to make their own team video. And he basically convinced Mike to get me involved. And by that time, I'd been on a bunch of surf trips with the Forum team, and I actually chose not to drink and to get stoked on surfing. So I was like getting the team up first. MacDog was super stoked to me because he's like, dude, this guy's charging, getting up at 5 a.m, getting us surfing, finding all the spots. So they kind of could see that I could like run shit and be counted on and be responsible and blah, blah, blah. So then they offered me the job they said, we want to make a Forum movie and we want you to be the director. We want you to produce the movie under MacDog's label.
Dope.
And so that was basically one of the most stressful years of my life because we didn't know whether you could do a team video in a snowboard setting. It's different when you have controlled environments, but snowboarding's uncontrolled environments. So you're always a slave to the weather. And it was a lot of pressure and a lot of stress. And then that was Resistance. And I think that was 99. That's when that was. So,
that makes sense. And also, the Forum 8 at that point, there was nobody hotter. I don't think there's ever been a team as marketed properly, and mostly because of those videos too, right? Like where it took them out of the rest of the industry, put them in this separate category, and kids bought in wholesale.
Yeah, that's basically Raul from Forum basically copied Stacy Peralta's model and also copied Mike Ternasky's model for Plan B.
Yeah.
And those guys, they lived, right down in the same area. And Raul, I don't know if he knew Ternasky, but there was some kind of connection there through this other guy who owned Forum, Greg DeLeo and stuff. And basically Raul was a genius. Raul Reese is a genius. And the thing is, when he made the Forum team and he created stuff, he didn't drink. He was totally sober and focused on Special Blend and Forum, and then Peter Line and MacDog and all them. So then they basically, they were the hottest team by far. Like no one's even come close. Like it was like their marketing, and then they also had the best dudes, like by far. So, and there were so many things, like Peter was part owner in the company, and then Duffy came along, and that was super sick. Like Peter Line and those guys, like they wanted Raul and them wanted Duffy on, and they had to call me and Sean because we were Duffy's parents at that point, basically, because Sean had found Duffy, so they had to ask if, and we were like, yeah, sure, dude, and if you fuck with him, we will kill you. Like it was really that simple. It was like, this is fuck you. Like this kid's the sickest, and we know it. So if you fuck with him, you're dead. Like that's how the negotiations went down in those days.
That was a boson time too, right? Nate came on maybe right after.
Nate came on Resistance. Yeah, is when he came on. Yeah, if I remember, and he was like, he was a Utah kid, and Steve Ruff was the team manager, and he was really backing Nate. Nate could skate and Six style and all that stuff, so he came on, and he actually was one of the kids who, so when I was directing the movie and everything, I was coming from that Sealand Bowl.
Totally.
Vibe. So like you had to earn my respect, you know what I mean? And so if you were Nate Bozon, you were just a piece of shit until you put your dues in, So I definitely put that kid through the ringer. Like I was just not having it. I was like, I tried to be nice to him, try and get him the hills, but until you're chucking yourself off cliffs, you're nothing to me. And I had this total attitude of that. And then I respect the guys who put in their dues. So it was like, it was a really tight crew because I was a rider at one point, so everybody respected my decisions. Well, for the most part, I definitely had it out with some of the guys, but whatever.
You got 8 or 9, including yourself, 10 if you put Duffy in there.
Yeah.
Like, of the top snowboarders in the world.
Yeah.
Of course, you're all alpha males. Nobody's going to be like, oh, yeah, whatever. I'll just do what someone else says.
Yeah.
I'm the fucking best in the world. We're on the best team. Yeah, there's going to be clashes.
It was insane, dude. I remember, like, Steve Ruff was so instrumental in that. And you'd fly into, like, San Clemente, and they'd have, like, team meetings and stuff.
You're talking Steve Ruff, the Steve Ruff?
Like, Steve Ruff, like...
Smooth like rough.
No.
The skater.
No. Is there a skater named Steve Ruff?
Isn't there a Steve Ruff?
Are you thinking like Steve Bell?
No, Ruff. Steve Ruff from back, a vert skater from back in the day.
No.
Okay,
and
whatever.
I don't know a vert skater named Steve Ruff.
Great.
So
well, I'm out. There's somebody with the last name Ruff that I'm getting.
We're gonna have to go down that one. So anyway, another time. But anyway, Steve Ruff was the team manager for drag, and then he became the team manager and he helped put together the Forum 8. And when the team would fly in to San Clemente or Orange County or whatever, and he'd pick everybody up and then you'd go stay at Ruff's place. Like, his place was paid for by Forum, so he'd have the Forum team in there. And we'd all be sitting around these huge, big U-shaped couches watching it. And dude, it was powerful. Like, it would be like you're hanging out with, like, Devin Walsh, Peter Line, Yanni, Jeremy Jones, like, Bjorn. Like, we'd all be sitting on these couches, like, eating shitty food and, like, just talking shit. But it was surreal. Like, it was like, and I was the director of the film, and it was a trip hanging out with that much talent in a room. Like, it was like hanging out with the ad, except it was in a room full of a bunch of dudes, you know. And
that would be the ad sometimes. They just take a picture of you guys in the room.
Yeah, totally. And those and there's something to be said about, you get a group of guys like that together, and then the momentum that builds. Like, I'm part of something, and then my confidence level goes up. Like, I watched guys go from being awesome snowboarders to masters in that group, like, just like purely on another level, where they would just be one-upping each other and supporting each other, and it was just insane to watch and to be a part of. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was.
You're kind of the polar opposite of the whiskey. Like, we're just doing what we're doing. This is a job and everybody is working hard to put out those videos. Those videos kicked ass.
Like the Forum videos?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They kicked ass. Whiskey kicked ass on a different, like, just on a different front. Mm-hmm, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was cool because with the Forum videos, I got to build this. I could get out of this story that I was just this alcoholic, booze loser, fuckface, and actually apply myself to something and stay focused and come out with a good product at the end of the day.
Totally.
And, you know, I want to be really clear. It wasn't just me. It was, and it wasn't just the team. It was also the marketing guys at Forum. Rawls genius, Steve Ruff being the team manager. Like, it was a total collective. And then I was just the guy who got to put my name on the front that said director. But it was totally and completely a collaboration between a lot of people. Like, even the people working in the warehouse, everybody had some part in it. You know what I mean?
Totally. So how does this peter out? Like, what happens after the Forum video days? Like,
the Forum video days. So basically what happens is one day Raul Reese, the owner of Forum, well, actually, interesting. He starts partying, and he starts getting loose. Like, it's kind of like we've got it made attitude. We made it.
Yeah.
And because we were like, if you were part of Forum 2, our shit didn't stink. We were taken over. Like, it was just over. And then at one point, Raul wanted to take the Forum movies in-house, because at that point he was paying MacDog a lot of money to make the movies. Like, he was paying full sponsorship price, and then MacDog was taking the profits. And Raul knew how much profits we were making, because he wasn't stupid. And he's like, wait a minute, if I'm paying all this money to sponsor, and I'm paying all this money for all these riders to travel around the world, and then Sean and MacDog and these guys are making all this money, even though MacDog was a part owner, from a business standpoint, it's like, why the fuck would I do that? Why don't I just make my own movie? And that was a huge riff, because all the riders, like, as far as I was concerned, they were all my best friends. We created this thing together. So I had this, like, unsaid expectation of them that if they're my boys, they got my back thick and thin, death or die. Except I never told them that's my expectation of them. I just expected that from them. And then Raul, basically, everybody was stressing about it, because it's like, he's like, we need to make our own movie under the Forum banner without MacDog. And everybody's like, what the fuck are you talking about? We're like family. Why is this? What was actually happening is, I think Raul was starting to run into some financial problems, because they were getting pretty loose, and they were looking for other ways to make money. and which isn't a bad idea, just business, whatever. And they're Americans, and Americans, in my experience, mostly are, not all, but 99.9 motivated by money. And so basically, there was less heart in it and more like, we need to make this money. True Life sold, I think, 130,000 plus copies.
Wow.
And when you're talking about, duplicating that thing on DVD or VHS tape in those days, whatever it was, costing $200 to $250 to duplicate it with all the cover art and everything like that. And then you're selling it to distributors for $14.
Right.
And then selling it to wholesale for $19, you're talking millions, right?
You're into millions of dollars.
Yeah, you're into millions of dollars. Plus, we raised money in sponsorship, plus. Like, it was totally the heyday. And so they were just looking at other ways to make money, and you could see it. And even, actually, interesting, this is a little sidebar, because all the music was being legitimately licensed, all the music companies started hitting up MacDog, like Sony and Ouya, and they started like, what are you guys fucking doing over there? How are you selling 130,000 copies of these videos, and we can't give Congo away for $9.99 in Best Buy, and you're selling these things for $19.95?
Yeah.
And we actually got called to the studios and had to have meetings with them and stuff. Like, they were all over our shit.
That's amazing.
So there was money being made. It's like this whole thing about, you start, more money, more problems. Well, all of a sudden we had all these people beating on our door, and Raul Reese was one of them. He's like, I want a piece of this.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. He did all the marketing. He's paying for all this. So there could have been a nicer split maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway, that started a huge problem. And then it was basically like MacDog against Forum at that point, like a total war.
He was a part of the original.
It was
Forum,
very
though.
MacDog. It was very confusing because MacDog's like, basically, fuck those guys. They're not making movies. We started this shit, and we're all like, fuck those guys.
Oh no.
Oh no, it was nasty. And then I'm like, well, I got my boy Devin and Duffy and all these guys, and there's no way they're going to split on me. I'm their homie. I own a house with Devin. Like, me and Devin own a house in Whistler together and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And what I didn't take into account is that, guy like Devin or Duffy and those guys, they're sponsors for them, and that's who's paying them the most money, and they've got to do what they say. But I'm thinking, oh no, they got bigger hearts than brains, and they're going to get my back. And it just turned this total riff, like total shit between me and Devin and Duffy and everybody. And so that's when they went on to make Video Gangs. And I went on to make Shakedown. And the only one who decided to stick with me and MacDog was JP. Against his contract with Forum, he stood up and said, you know what, fuck this. MacDog and Kearns, they know what they're doing. I'm sticking with them. And that was a nightmare because his sponsor was paying him all this money. And then he's filming with us, and he didn't even film for Video Gangs. And then Duffy and Devin are doing their thing, and it's shitty for them too.
Yep.
And I knew, this is a funny story. A lot of people don't know. I knew that Johnson was sitting in North Vancouver. He was doing whatever he's doing, and he wasn't rich, and he didn't have a movie deal and all that kind of stuff. And on the last meeting I had with the Forum guys, I actually said this on the way out the door, full well knowing what I was doing. I said, the only fucking person in the world who can pull off what you guys are trying to pull off is Sean Johnson. There's no fucking way he'd work for you assholes. And I left. Sean Johnson was working for them within a week. They hired him within a week, and they thought they put this slide movie. And really, I did is I helped my friend get new tires for his truck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's amazing, dude. Unfucking believable.
Yeah, so that all happened. It was messy, man. It was really messy and shitty, and it was lame. And then where it went from there is the snowboard film industry. So we did the Shakedown movie. They did Video Gangs, and what no one saw coming was, so we went from selling 130,000 copies to 40,000 copies instantly. Oh. And it was like, so Shakedown was like basically a failure, and that was because of the internet and because robot food and all that other stuff. Like,
is this like 2001?
That'd be about 2001, 2002.
Because everything in the whole industry collapses in 2001.
Yeah. So that was it. It just collapsed and basically, it just fell apart.
Burton fires their team. Yeah. Everybody gets fired.
Yeah.
People are just,
Yeah, because the boom wore off and everybody had too much stock and too much this and everybody was spending recklessly.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I was making, like, I was there was so much money to be made in those days. It was was that not sustainable?
Unsustainable.
Unsustainable.
Right.
And I would say that I had a huge part in making sure it wasn't sustainable because I made sure fools were getting paid. You know what I mean? Like especially filmers. I was like, dude, we're running the show. Why am I making the least amount of money when I'm doing the most work? So I was a big part of swapping that, making sure filmers get paid.
Cool.
And so they started getting paid. And, you know, I took a lot of blame for like, well, you cost too much. And it's like, no. It was just reckless spending all around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then as you get into the mid-2000s, are you still filming? Like how many years do you do movies still?
I think so after the last one I did, so at one point I was just burning out. After Shakedown, I was burnt out. And Mac Dog and I started, like, I'm like, dude, you know what? Like, I don't want to run I was running Mac Dog, and I'm like, I don't want to run it anymore. And it was like, it was just big, messy. Like, now looking back, it's like the industry was dying. Like, the money was going down. There's nothing we could do about it. And then we started looking for people to blame. I'm looking for someone to blame. He's looking for someone to blame. Blah, blah, blah. We spent too much money on this song. We didn't do this right. Da-da-da-da-da.
Right.
Also running someone's company. It's called owner-operator syndrome. Like I'm acting as the owner, but I'm actually just the operator, and I'm constantly going up against this person or this thought of this person, you know, not being happy with me or wanting to do things differently. So very stressful. And actually, Mike and I, out of all the, that's the only person in the industry or any business dealings I've ever had that we actually still don't talk. We had a falling out and we don't talk. And I'm not going to say whose fault it was or anything. I'll own, like I was a piece of work in those days and hard to deal with. So I'll own that. So we've never talked since. And we had a split. And that's when I started Infamous Management, the management company that started managing athletes. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. We're getting right to
what?
We're an hour and 15 in, which is sick.
Okay, sorry, I talk a lot. And
I like it. I'm engaged with everything you've said so far. I think the management company. Did you start with Roberta right away? And was she JP's girlfriend at the time?
Yeah, they were together long before that. And basically, I started it on my own. Well, with JP. And it was like, you know, I was like helping people, not only me, but JP too. Like we were helping people, telling them what to wear, telling them what not to wear. Like I remember like Seth Hewitt, when he came on, I think he was making like, you know, we were just basically, we just take people and be like, hey, do this, tweak this, do that. And then all of a sudden you're worth a lot more money.
Right.
It's like, well, let's start a company that actually represents these guys. And JP was always just loved how I'd go in and negotiate with people because I was legit. I'd been around forever, so I could negotiate. So started that, and it was up and running and things were going good, but it actually ended up turning out to be more of a babysitting job than an agency. Like I learned a ton, but it was something I wasn't really interested in. Then Roberta was just awesome with the details. So she came in and started helping me, and eventually I ended up selling the company to her, and then she ended up running it on her own. But she was really good at the details. Like she would handle everything for people. So that's kind of where that went. And then from that management company, that's when I got the call from Forum, and then they wanted me to start making movies for them again, as separate from MacDog. So that's where that ended up. Yeah.
And then after those movies, what happens between snowboarding career and the back injury?
So basically in the end of the snowboarding career, like I was done making snowboard movies. I was just burnt. The guys who owned Forum at that point, which was Burton, there was a guy named Chief running the company. That guy's a piece of shit. I don't like that. I've never liked that guy. He's just a pile. He was just like, now looking back, I realize he was just a slave for whatever. But they did some manipulative shit and whatever. And I don't like that guy. Basically, at that time with Forum, with the help of Forum and Evan Rose, actually, who worked at Forum, we actually got and then my friend Jim Martin, we actually got the first independent movie onto iTunes, which was that. And we worked that deal with Apple, and then they actually granted me a studio, and then I had the first independent content provider studio on Apple. So I had this deal with Apple. I'm like, I'm going to retire now. I don't need to work anymore.
Amazing.
Yeah. Like top of my game, right? And then it was like, okay, I don't want to make snowboard movies. So basically I moved to Vancouver Island, buy this dream house on this right-hand point break with this beautiful girlfriend and start living this life. And I think after being there for probably about a couple months, I ended up getting in this car accident. And so the way I left the snowboard industry was like, I had this management company. I'm this big filmmaker. I have this deal with Apple. And everybody was like, a lot of my friends and everybody's like, oh yeah, Sean's just gone on to make millions and he's laughing and everything. And what a lot of people don't know is I was basically spent from 2007 to 2011 trying to figure out ways not to kill myself, because I went into like a brutal depression. I had this back injury. I lost my business. I lost the business with Apple. I couldn't make films anymore. I couldn't surf. I couldn't skateboard. I couldn't snowboard. And basically, I was left with actually having to deal with myself, which was a hell of a place to be, because I'd never actually stopped to actually do that. So that's where that went. Yeah. So that was 2007 to 2011 were pretty rough years. And I didn't even know what was happening. It was just going darker and deeper into like a pit of hell and despair. So
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
What happens in 2011 that brings you out of that?
So 2011, I basically get to the point of like, okay, I'm just going to off myself. That's it. Like, I'm just done. I'm not going to live anymore. Everything I do fucks up. Everything, everywhere I turn fucks up. And I basically end up, it was funny because I talked to a lot of people and they were like, oh man, we thought you were just killing it and you turned your back on us. And they didn't know I was like sitting in fetal position in the corner of a room, just like wanting to kill myself, like totally depressed. Like,
how did you isolate yourself from your friends?
I was living in Jordan River, dude. There's not even a gas station.
Physically
so it was
isolated.
So my friends all thought I was out on the coast killing it surfing, and I was just like, I mean, don't get me wrong, it wasn't all bad. There was definitely some times out there, but it was just unhealthy.
Right.
And it got worse and worse and worse because I was defined by I used to define myself by my achievements, and I hadn't achieved anything. And every day that went that I didn't achieve anything, I was just a bigger piece of shit. And that became the inner dialogue. You're a fraud. You're a piece of shit. And then I ended up, so in 2011, I basically got to the point, December 9th, 2011, I was like, okay, so if you're going to off yourself, just do it. Like if anybody knows me, it's like I'm kind of like just get her done kind of thing, you know? So it wasn't really a dramatic thing. It wasn't like, attention. It's like, no, how are you going to do it? And sadly enough, the only reason I didn't is because I had two dogs, two Newfoundlands. And I'm like, this isn't fair to them. I was so far gone, I didn't think about my family. I didn't think about my friends. I didn't think about anything I'd done in my past. I just thought about wanting to stop the pain. And I couldn't get myself out of this fucking hole. And the only reason I didn't was because of these dogs. I'm like, that's not fair to them. They didn't sign up for this. And no one's going to treat them as good as I am. And so I basically made a decision. It's like, okay, you're not going to do it. So just get that decision out of the way. You're not going to kill yourself. Okay, great. So now you have to go, and you've pretty much tried everything. Well, now you're really going to have to try. Like, you're going to have to go after living as if your life depends on it, because it does. And so I went after healing myself like I went after skateboarding and snowboarding and surfing, just head down and go and keep trying and keep going. And so luckily for me, I came across some people who look at things differently than just taking psychoactive drugs like SSRIs and things, actually, because I was for sure depressed. I was for sure anxiety ridden. I was all of the above. And luckily for me, I dove into, you could call it personal growth, you could call it spirituality, all these different things, new age, whatever. I call it whatever the fuck I had to do to stay alive. That's what I call it. And it worked. And that's actually that's the direction I'm going in my life, is actually helping other people who are struggling with depression, anxiety, and other things, to help them heal, help them get out of whatever rut I was in. So, yeah.
That's sick, dude.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at now, in your studio that you've built in your house.
Yeah.
A half a block from the beach.
Yeah.
This beautiful zone with your gorgeous dog.
Yeah. And my guru.
And your guru.
Yeah.
Who lives in your house. Which
yeah.
is, and so it's unclear from this morning. Are you going to do a podcast? Are you in the rut right now where you're like, fuck it, I'm not going to do it?
That's a great question, man, because I've had this studio built for about 3 months now, and the question is it's like I just keep getting in my way, and it seems like perfectionism gets in my way. Like it's got to be perfect, and then it's like, do I even want to do this? But as of right now, I'm learning, and I think that some of the conversation, like even the stuff you're asking me right now, like I hope that someone who is depressed and is thinking about killing themselves hears this and is like, dude, that guy, like really, I had no idea. And really because I'm out the other side now. I don't want to kill myself anymore.
Right.
Well, not every day, all day anyway. There's at least one moment every day where I think it'd be kind of nice. I've heard death is absolutely safe. Have you ever heard that?
You know what? I've never gone that. I've definitely had my own moments for sure.
I heard it's safe when you die. It's totally safe. So anyway,
I heard Mark Maron actually. He's a really famous comedian,
I know who he is,
and he had a great bit on suicide. He said he'd like to keep it as an option.
Yeah.
It's like it's just an option. I could fucking go to the grocery store and get food for my fucking dogs. I could kill myself.
Yeah.
Like it's just an option. I don't have to do anything because I could just like kill myself.
Yeah, I do believe it is an option. And I think it's a perfectly there's people on that walking the face of this earth. I believe they that's a good option for them. There's people who suffer and they haven't been able to stop suffering.
I thought you were talking about just
like
the new guy at the new guy at the Starbucks. Like you should just go kill yourself.
Yeah, well,
buddy.
sometimes I go. Yeah, sometimes I'm a little loose with that one. Let me tell you, but.
I love the idea of you talking into a microphone so that I can listen to it when I'm walking around. I listen to podcasts about 8 hours a week. No, 5 times 3, 15 hours a week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, plugging into a conversation with you talking with, even if it's not a snowboarder, the way that you engage with people, you should do it, man.
Yeah, cool. No,
there's people listening to this right now that are yelling like, do it.
Yeah.
We'll listen to it.
Well, I mean, thanks for saying that. And I'm like, really? Do people want to hear this? And I'm like, fuck, like I think there is, like, what I'm really interested in is talking about what people aren't saying. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's what I want to talk to people about. Like, yeah, even the richest people in the world who seem all successful and have all together, they don't, dude. Everybody's got their shit, and I think that's one of the biggest problems. Is I want to hear more about that, so I can not feel like I'm alone.
One of the guys that we've mentioned in this podcast, and I'm not going to say who, just went and did an ayahuasca thing.
Yeah,
and he's so embarrassed of his money friends finding out about it. He doesn't want anyone to know, really. Yeah, he doesn't want his friends to even know because it's got that stigma. But he went down for the ayahuasca trip. And he's so wrapped up in the money thing that I don't think that he admitted he couldn't get into it. Like he couldn't release. He saw people barfing and shitting themselves, and he was kind of like, I don't know, maybe that drug just like makes you shit yourself. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't really. You know what? I'm kind of fine with where I am right now. And he was like starting to get scared of like actually who he was.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't really want to. You know what? I'm good. I'm good. Fuck it. I don't need to go to the core. I'm fine with staying where I am.
And dude, you know what? That is a perfectly good option for some people. I think about 98% of the people, we're talking about 98, 99% of the people that walk around. It's red pill, blue pill, and it's a great option. Like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And
because it's a big deal when you choose the other path.
Dude, if you like, and I'm not better than anybody. I'm just a sick fuck who likes to dig around in my neuroses and other things. And it's just like, there's a lot of days I'm like, I really wish I hadn't taken the blue pill, and I really wish I wasn't into this awareness or consciousness and all this stuff, because I'm actually somewhat aware of what I'm doing these days. And part of that is actually having to learn how to like the shitty parts of yourself. Like that's the part you don't get to go to Yoga Man and buy Lululemons and all of a sudden become a spiritual leader. It's not the way it works, motherfucker. Like you gotta like the shitty stuff too about yourself, because we all got it.
Yeah.
And so have fun with that one.
All right, I'm wrapping it up.
Okay.
This has been an absolutely amazing conversation. I'm going to do some shout outs to everybody that was at the baked salmon at Mount Seymour. Thanks to the boardroom for helping put that on. There's salmon arm gloves. That's Nick Haranga, who's just an amazing human being. We got Dinos Will Die. Support those guys. And Brendan Keenan was up there. Those guys worked basically all season to put on this one event at Mount Seymour, and it was, I told you, on the beach, 250 of the raddest people in snowboarding from the Lower Mainland and Whistler and the soul of snowboarding is definitely alive.
Yeah, that stoked me out when you said that, dude. I was like, yes, like that. I needed to hear that. That was like, in fact, I wished I was there.
Yeah,
so.
you got to come next year for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And we'll hit the Currents jump together if your back's feeling it.
Dude, it'll be feeling it. It'll be feeling it. Cool, man.
Actually, I took the girl who won the event. Come on. Sarah Niblock. She won the women's. I took her because everyone was doing the step up. Under the chair, there's a step up to the plateau.
Yeah.
And everyone was doing it, and she was humming and hawing. And I said, no, come follow me off this. Maybe I didn't even say it. I just dropped in. I'm like, I'm hitting that. It looks better. And she followed me off it at the bottom. She was like, what is that? That's the Kearns. And she was, and she was like, that was way better than that step over. And I was like, yeah, it's awesome.
Rad,
and
dude.
then on the chairlift, I said, I told Kearns that thing's called the Kearns, and he said, yeah, what the fuck are you talking about? And the whole chair got a good laugh, so that was
what are you
fun.
even talking about?
Yeah.
Awesome, dude.
So make sure to come back next week for another episode of the FNRad Snowboarding Podcast, brought to you by Bike Room Productions.
Awesome.
All right,
Done.
we're good.